Hey guys, so in this video, I'm very excited to finally be checking out the brand new Sony A6600. A portion of this video is sponsored by Squarespace, an all-in-one platform to create a clean website. So the A6600 was just released. It was announced several months ago. This is my own copy of it, and I'm super excited to test it out and try it out. So let's see everything that comes in the package. So it comes in a simple small black box. Inside you get the camera, you get the brand new Z battery, a charging cable and a charging brick, which I have left at home, Sony branded alpha strap, and your usual assortment of manuals and guides. There's not a whole lot to the packaging, but here is what the camera looks like. My first impressions, I have to say, the improved grip is amazing. I wish that Sony put this grip on every single APS-C mirrorless camera that they have. Also, while using this camera, I've noticed that the buttons on the back, especially the menu and the C3 custom 3 buttons, are a bit more pronounced, so they're easier to access with your thumb. You don't have to dig in to push those 2 buttons anymore. On this side, you have the addition of that headphone jack, and then around the bottom, the ever important brand new, or not really new, but new to APS-C, the larger Z battery. The only other thing worth noting is the presence of the flip-up screen. So now all of the new lineup, the A61, A64, and A6600, all have this tilt-up screen. Sony hasn't made drastic changes here at all. The only other thing that I forgot to mention is that you'll notice there is no more pop-up flash on the top of this camera. So there is no doubt that this is Sony's best APS-C mirrorless camera. It is their top of the line, the best of the best. Now, there has been a lot of negativity surrounding this camera, which is interesting because in doing some research for this video, I was just reading through some news articles when the A6500 was announced. People loved that thing. So when Sony announced the A6500, everyone jumped for joy. All of the articles were very positive, but for some reason, the A6600, although it has so many drastic improvements over even the A6500, people are still disappointed, upset. There's a whole bunch of people just complaining about its lack of innovation or lack of features. And while there are some very good points, like the sensor in this camera is now 3+ years old, almost 4 years old, and they could have included some additional goodies like 4K 60, blah, blah, blah. I'm just gonna go through what is included with this camera and why anyone would consider buying this over the A6400, which I think is value for money, the best camera you can buy right now. Before I jump into showing you some samples of what this camera is capable of and talking about my overall opinions of it, let's talk about today's video sponsor, Squarespace. Squarespace is an all-in-one online platform to create an amazing website. Whether that be a portfolio, an e-commerce website, or a professional website, it's easy to claim your own URL and create a website that matches your own personal style. One of the best things about Squarespace is their built-in analytics software, which allows you to see not only how many times your website has been visited, but where the traffic is coming from, how long people are staying on your website, and more. And with Squarespace, it's very easy to get feedback on what is working and what you can do to improve. So head over to squarespace.com for your free trial, and once you're ready to launch, you can use squarespace.com/ArthurR to receive 10% off your website or domain. I'll post the link down in the description. So let's go back to talking about the A6600. It's a great camera. Don't let anyone else convince you otherwise. It is Sony's top of the line. After using this camera over the last couple of days, I like it a lot. It's so much more comfortable to use than my A6400. There's one big problem that I have with it, and you guys probably have already guessed it by now, and that is the price. So in this video, what I'd like to do is I'm gonna go through the 7 reasons or 7 differences between this camera and the A6400, because that is going to be the best determining factor for you guys out there who are cross-shopping between these cameras. If these 7 reasons are enough for you to spend the extra $500, then buy this thing over the A6400. So let's jump into it. So the first difference between the A6600 and the A6400 is, of course, IBIS, or in-body image stabilization. This is the only camera besides the Sony A6500 that has Sony's built-in 5-axis stabilization. It's important to understand if you're planning on buying an A6600, the IBIS on this camera isn't revolutionary. It's pretty old technology, and as far as I can tell, using this side by side with my Sony A6500, there's absolutely no improvement to the IBIS on this camera over the Sony A6500. So don't expect anything miraculous. The IBIS on this camera is not better than the IBIS on the Sony A7 III, the full frame camera. A second difference between this and the A6400 is obviously the brand new Z battery. Now, what you're getting with this larger battery is over twice the capacity of the older, smaller FW50 batteries, which is nice. This is my own personal A6600 that I purchased with my own money. And when it came in, I was thinking about how many more batteries I wanted to buy for it, and thinking like I typically do, that number was like 5 to 6, but then I realized I'll be fine with 2 or 3. So that is nice. The other nice thing about these batteries is that they have come down in price a lot. I was able to pick up a charger and 2 off-brand batteries for about, what was it, $35 on Amazon. So really inexpensive stuff. Now, if you are a professional video shooter, if you shoot weddings, if you get paid for your work especially, this is invaluable. Being able to have a battery that lasts you all day is super nice. Also, if you're using this camera as a B cam to your full frame Sony mirrorless camera, then it's going to be perfect, because then you can use the exact same battery with your Sony A7 III or Sony A7R IV and your Sony A6600. As a result of the larger battery, the third difference between the A6400 and the A6600 is this larger grip. And if I had to pay for anything over the A6400, I think the grip is the one thing that is my favorite feature about this camera. I know it sounds silly because it has IBIS and all these other fancy things like bigger batteries, but for me, practically, it is really nice to have this grip. I can carry this around with a wrist strap like I have right now all day with no complaints at all, even with a heavy lens. The fourth difference between these two cameras is now you have continuous eye autofocus in video mode with the A6600. And this is an odd one for me because Sony just should have included it on all of their brand new lineup, the 61, 64, and the 6600. And maybe they'll do something like that in a firmware update in the future. It seems kind of odd that they would exclude that feature from everything but this higher end camera. That being said, if you're recording yourself or someone else, the difference between face tracking, which is already really good with Sony mirrorless cameras, and continuous eye autofocus isn't huge. I mean, the difference in focus between someone's eye and someone's face, as long as you're not recording an f1.2, in most cases is going to be relatively close. So it's a nice feature to have on this camera, but it's not something that I personally would pay an extra couple $100s for. So the fifth difference between this camera and the A6400 is the addition of the headphone jack. So again, it's primarily for those who are using these cameras for cinematography, for video recording. It is nice to be able to listen to your audio as it's being recorded, or so I hear. I personally record all of my audio externally, so having a headphone jack on this camera really isn't going to help me at all. Difference number 6 is the addition of a couple of extra custom buttons, which is nice to have. So you have custom 1, custom 2, custom 3, and custom 4 on the A6600. So you have a couple of extras over the A6400. And if you use your camera a lot, even if you're just using it for photography, it is nice to program those buttons to specific tasks, and it makes using the camera a little bit easier and a little bit faster. The last difference between the A6600 and the A6400 is that there's no flash here. And this is, I think, the most weird thing that Sony has done with this camera. Now, I like the camera. Like I said in the very beginning, it is Sony's top of the line. It's their best camera, and I would highly recommend it to any and all of you if you can afford spending $1,400 on a camera. But why would they remove a pop-up flash from this camera and replace it with literally nothing. It's not like they needed that space for extra processing power. They didn't put anything there. They just removed it and then they made the camera and sold it. It just is super bizarre to me. I don't understand why they didn't leave the pop-up flash as it was. I know that most people don't use it a whole lot, but every once in a while, even as a fill light, it would be nice to have a little pop-up flash just in case you needed it, you know? So that is the last difference between these two cameras, and this is where I want to wrap up and conclude. And I'll conclude by saying again, this is an excellent camera. The biggest problem I have with it is the price. You're getting 7 differences, but you have to pay an additional $500 over the excellent A6400 to get your hands on the A6600. And at $1,400, that's a hard pill to swallow, especially because recently I've been on eBay and I've found the Sony A7 Mark III for as low as $1,550 brand new. So you're already in full frame territory, and this is only an APS-C sized camera. Now, for video work, you can argue that this is a better camera than the A7 Mark III because you have no record limit. They've gotten rid of all the overheating issues. Color science is the same as the A7 III. So there are a lot of good things about this camera as a video camera. And believe me, I plan on using this thing on my channel to record my videos in the future. But I think if Sony had priced this thing at $1,100, they would have had a winner on their hands, and far fewer people out there would have been complaining about the lack of features, because at $1,100, I'd say this is a relative bargain. But at $1,400, unless you are a professional getting paid for your work, the best bang for your buck is still with the Sony A6400, so that remains my recommendation. That is going to be it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thanks for all of your likes, comments, and support. Comment down below. Let me know what your guys' thoughts are on the A6600. Let me know if you think my purchase of this camera was the absolute worst purchase of my life. Stay tuned for more. Subscribe if you are not yet subscribed, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.